The Vanderbilt Commodores are finally taking an all-in approach to athletics. How's it going to fare?
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you everydayers. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. I appreciate each and every one of you and how you interact. This show wouldn't be what it is without that. So we're going to get you into the weekend like this, okay? We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about the all-in approach that Vanderbilt is taking, the retention part of it, the recruiting part of it, the transfer portal part of it, how they're building their program, and how each athletic team really is going through the necessary steps to build their program effectively. And so we're going to talk about that. Clark Lea made mention of that at SEC Media Day. So I'm very excited about the direction of this program. We're going to peek into the reasons why these programs are on the rise. There's a new approach to all of this. He made the mention that administration is finally taking an all-in approach and removing things that were once barriers. It has allowed coaches and key players retention. It has increased attention in the portal and recruiting, and it's going to make Vanderbilt a viable program. Here's why, right? Here's what I think. Because you look at basketball, you look at baseball. Baseball had a really good season. They won the SEC tournament. Didn't do so great in the regionals, but they're a team that's starting to kind of realize that there's an all-in approach. So I think they're going to act a little bit differently moving forward as a baseball program. Basketball has completely reset the market on everything at Vanderbilt. They're kind of the leaders of this new era, this charge into the new era. The rev share, the portal, the recruiting, they're leading the charge on all this. They've been the most aggressive program, actually, as far as that goes. I think they were kind of the first ones to really get the green light. So they've, Mark Byington and, the basketball staff has a little bit more seasoning when it comes to recruiting in the portal. In basketball, I think it's a little bit, I think you can sell some different things within your program, and I think sometimes you have a little bit more success in the basketball transfer portal than you would in a football transfer portal, because football has been in sort of like a dark ages up until last season. So here's what Clark Lea actually had to say about that. He said, but in the current state of affairs, current landscape of college football, you're not talking about retaining without resources. And I'm so deeply grateful to Chancellor DeMeyer and Candace Lee for having the courage and vision to go beyond historical limits that have held our program back in the past and to champion a new era of growth and support. So that quote, and I'll leave it up there for a minute because it's kind of a beefy quote there, but this quote really stands out to me because he's recognizing and he's basically shouting from the mountaintops to the world that there have been a lot of barriers. And it's well known what the barriers are. It's well known that there's been things that have held this program back from being able to get the pieces they need to build a viable program, especially in the sport of football. Football is so reliant on having all the resources. You got to have new facilities. Your stadium's got to be up to date. All of this stuff has to be top notch, or you're not going to have a viable program. It's not going to be an attractive program for players, for coaches, support staff, anybody, right? If you have rundown facilities, your stadium's falling apart, and you're losing, it's not a great combination. And that's for a while, since 2013, really. That's what Vanderbilt is doing, with pockets of winning, of course, and pockets of things that are good, of course. But the overall gist of the last 10 years of football, it hasn't been good. Last year was the first year that they've been bowl eligible since 2013. Actually, last year they won a bowl since 2013. I think 1 year under Derek Mason, they went to a bowl. I think they ended up losing it. But it's a program that is in desperate need because it is in such a great area. It's in a phenomenal conference. It's in a booming city now. I can consider Nashville a booming city. It's one of the fastest growing in the country. It is perfect market for NIL. So why not go all in on that? And I think the administration realized that, hey, we can go all in on this. We can get the resources now. We have what it takes, and we have things in place, and we have things around the city that is going to make it much easier to get the resources, and we can build a winning football team. And they did so last season. Last season, they started to pour some resources in. I think there was some time that it just wasn't quite enough time to build it the way it needs to be built. It's a more of a long-term project in that regard, which is totally understandable. And I think no one's mad at that. It just is what it is. When you're so far behind, it takes that much amount of time for you to get back even with a lot of your competition and a lot of your peers within the conference. So it's a scenario where they had to recognize the problem, right? And I think they've always kind of known the problem. They just have been kind of neglecting it, ignoring it, and saying, hey, we're just going to focus on academics. We don't really care about athletics. You can essentially do what you want to do. And then I think the noise got to be too much. I think also the allure of the revenue stuff, like how much money you can actually make off of athletics for your university and the recognition you get for your university and all the positive things that come with having a really good athletics program, I think they finally realized it. I think they finally gave it some attention. They looked at it and they said, okay, here's where we're at. So we need to start building and going all in. And so how can we do that? Well, when Clark Lea got there 4 years ago, he's going into his fifth season. So when he first got here in 2021, it was at rock bottom. They were pitiful. Administration was at the peak of them not caring. It was COVID. They were worried about other things. Barriers upon barriers upon barriers were just completely blocking the road of any resources. And it was blocking the entrance ramp for those resources. The exit ramp was clear, and there was a lot of traffic on it, right? They couldn't retain players. They couldn't retain coaches. They couldn't attract coaches in because of all the barriers. And, there was a lot of problems within the Vanderbilt athletic program when it finally became an athletic program and it wasn't just another part of the university, that there was all these barriers. And that's what he made reference to, all the things historically that have held Vanderbilt back, which is a nonchalant, non-caring administration. Now they're finally wanting to go all in. Now they're finally wanting to build the resources and seek those resources to help these programs out, starting with NIL. And I love that college football and college athletics has allowed teams like Vanderbilt to hit that reset button. They make NIL a thing. Vanderbilt's able to reset. It took them a minute to figure out how they wanted to reset it and how they wanted to incorporate it. I don't think they really knew how. I think they were being more reactionary on that front, but I think they finally kind of figured it out, and I think they finally got a good plan. And so I have full expectation that Vanderbilt is going to take a more all-in approach. And what does that mean? That means getting higher caliber players to come in. And you already started to see that, like Jordan White coming over from Liberty. He is a bona fide, and they don't pick centers on day one, unfortunately, or he would be, but he is a day two, he is a bona fide NFL prospect, legitimate NFL prospect. He is going to play in the league. He comes to Vanderbilt. He sees NIL opportunity. He sees opportunity within the football program with the overhaul of the coaching staff. He sees the vision that Tim Beck, Jerry Kill bring on the offensive side of the ball. He sees the renewed vision that Clark Lea has brought into the program. He saw all of that in action. And yes, you go 7-6. Is that a phenomenal record? No. Do people, but when you see where Vanderbilt has come from, you can understand the progression of why that's a huge deal and why that is a sign of better things to come in the future, because there's that potential there. There's the inner workings. There's the overhaul of things. It takes time, and they're taking the time, and they're making the investments where they need to make the investments. Basketball was really the first one to benefit from this new era of athletics and this new all-in approach. They were kind of the first ones to benefit because football was in the middle of the offseason at that point. The portal had already been kind of going, and they got what they could get coming off a 2-10 season. They got the coaches they could get coming off a 2-10 season. I'm still surprised that he was able to recruit Jerry Kill coming off of that, but I think Jerry Kill loves taking projects like this. He loves coming to places like this and building up. That's his kind of specialty. So in that regard, I'm not surprised, but like Clark Lea was on borrowed time at that point in time. January, February, March of 2024, he was on borrowed time. We all knew it. If he didn't win more than 4 games, he was toast. If he won 5, it was questionable. If he won 6 or more, he was safe. And he won 7, he had a chance to win 9, maybe even 10 if you really want to look at it. And now we're talking about it totally different. The I guess the perception of Vanderbilt football is completely different. But what happened, like where the dramatic shift was when they decided to let go of Jerry Stackhouse. Basketball was having a horrendous season. Football had just had a horrendous season. Baseball was in a big slump at that point. So Vanderbilt athletics was kind of going back towards the tank where it had been for quite some time. Baseball was kind of the only sport that was maintaining a acceptable level of performance, but even they were starting to tank a little bit. So I think there was a switch that was flipped. I'm not sure if there was already wheels in motion, but it sped up after this. As soon as they hired Mark Byington, they were very aggressive in the portal. They got the pieces that they could get, and they had a tournament winning team. They had a winning team that made the NCAA tournament in year 1, the Mark Byington era. And that, I think, was the catalyst of, hey, we can actually do this. I think that ignited something in this Vanderbilt administration and saying, okay, and they were starting that approach, and you can't really do much during football season. But football season, you beat Alabama. That was the initial catalyst. That was the, hey, we can actually do this. We can actually be a program. We've got the things in place. We've got the roster in place. We've got the coaches in place. We just got to continue to build it, and we got to solidify it. And then basketball happened. They went to the NCAA tournament. That ignited things, right? And that created some seismic shift now. And now Vanderbilt is getting recruits left and right. They just got a flip from Louisville, a 4-star running back. They've got 18 commits. They've got another one on the way. They're doing extremely well in recruiting. They've done well in the portal this cycle and getting the pieces they need, especially on the offensive line and defensive lines. So they've got some dynamic pieces there. They've built the roster out now. They've got a lot of depth. Now it's just going to be on the football team to really just kind of prove that, hey, this stuff is working. And that's going to be the true test. Is this stuff really working? They've got a tough schedule, so wins and losses might not be the best judge, but you got to kind of see the other things and see the smaller things. So, but one of the factors that goes into this whole renaissance of Vanderbilt athletics, and the first sign that there is a renaissance and it is actually working, is retention. People aren't fleeing. I'm going to tell you why that's happening next. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Like I said, you can save, you can get 50% off your first year. But Monarch Money is something that, if you've ever felt like you wanted to manage your money and make it easier, because sometimes that can be really difficult and overwhelming, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. So what's surprising to me is that with Monarch Money, I could see where everything was going. Where all my money was going, where I was spending and what I was spending on. And that's going to allow me to set goals and say, hey, if I want to save money, I can save it here, like not getting so much takeout or not buying so much on these online, not doing as much online shopping, getting things and frivolously spending. So that's been extremely good positive. That's been something that I've been very excited with Monarch Money, is that whole aspect of financial planning. So you too can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for half off your first year. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Again, presented by Monarch Money, 50% off your first year. That's a home run, man. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC Media Days have wrapped up at this point. And if you want to know what's going on in the best conference in all of football, Locked On SEC is a place to go if you want to go look at the coverage. If you want coverage of just Vanderbilt, well, you're in the right place now. But additional stuff, Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job. And it's just a really good, fun listen. And, of course, all the other shows we have on our network that represent the other SEC programs, those are also really fun listens and things like that. So, but we're talking about NIL. We're talking about rev share. We're talking about the all-in approach that Vanderbilt has seemingly taken, all right? And people are thinking, okay, well, you go to the NCAA tournament, you get bounced in the first round, 7-6, bowl game, you win. All right, baseball wins the SEC tournament, gets bounced in the regionals. Is that really evidence of success? Yes, there's evidence there. If you look beyond just the win-loss records, which I think have improved, like baseball did not win. They got bounced in the first game of the tournament last year. They hosted a regional this year. They lost. They didn't do the right things in the regional, and they made some mistakes there. But that's not a NIL all-in approach type mistake. It's just they just made some baseball errors there. Basketball was a team that made the tournament. I don't know that they were ready to make a run. St. Mary's it wasn't a good matchup for them. St. Mary's did well what Vanderbilt didn't, and it just became a problem. And so those things happen. And when you're building, you had limited resources. I'm surprised they made the tournament at all with the team that they put together. They had no size on the interior and the paint. They addressed that obviously in this latest transfer cycle, but they didn't have that, and they still won. So there's things that are happening that are very indicative of a really good positive culture. The first thing within football, since football season is next up, the first real big piece of evidence that there's something there. There's an all-in culture. There's some buy-in. There's a different way of doing things is retention. It's the best it's ever been, I think. Like the exit ramp, there's not much traffic at all, if any, right? And the on-ramp, I think some of those barriers have been moved. I think there's still some in place, but some of the barriers have been moved, and you've got more people getting into the program. You've got more people that are interested in the program. You've got eyes on Vanderbilt that you didn't always have. Some of that is because Diego Pavia is putting those eyes there with his performances, his interviews that bring attention to Vanderbilt football. Some of it is just the fact that they're getting some transfers, they're getting some recruits that you're just like, whoa. Because it used just even like when Clark Lea first got here, they were celebrating wins against UConn, who had won one game the previous season. They were celebrating winning a recruit over Buffalo. Like they didn't even dream about getting people from the portal. They couldn't fathom getting anything more than table scraps from the transfer portal, right? And since then, they've overhauled the way they've done things. They've realized that that's the problem. They've realized the culture was terrible. There was a losing culture. Nobody cared. It was really more of apathy than anything. Nobody cared, and it was just there. And it was kind of on life support. And as time went on, you got a little bit of hope in year two with Clark Lea. He went 5-7, had a couple of nice wins. And then year three was abysmal. And it was like, okay, this is another failure. And luckily, and I think it came down to the fact that I don't even think they cared enough to fire Clark Lea, to be honest with you. I think that was part of the reason. They just didn't realize that, hey, we're a winning program. And it just seemed like they didn't want to fire him. They believed his vision. They're like, okay, you got – and I don't know the conversations that went on. Like, I don't know how that went down at the end of the season. Like, if he was really told, hey, it's win or get out, or, hey, we trust your vision. We see you got something going on there. Like, I don't particularly know exactly what those conversations were like. I can imagine with the previous apathy and the things that held the program back were in play in that I guarantee they were in play, part of that decision. And the other part of it was, I think there was a vision there, and I think Clark Lea did a good job of selling that. He obviously did a good job of selling his vision because he was able to acquire Jerry Kill, Tim Beck, Diego Pavia, Eli Stowers, the key pieces that led to this revival. And then fast forward to this year, he's able to retain those pieces. Diego Pavia fought the NCAA for an extra year of eligibility. Why? Because he wanted to play at Vanderbilt. And I know you're going to say, well, he's not going to go to the pros. Like, what other decision did he have? Well, honestly, regardless of the reasons why he fought the NCAA to come back, if it was really just about money, he could have gone elsewhere. He got other offers when he fought the NCAA. He got a $4.5 million offer from another program, and he could have gone there. He could have transferred. He could have done the whole money grab thing and transferred to another school. He could have done all of that, but he didn't. He chose Vanderbilt. He chose to come back to Vanderbilt. He liked he liked the atmosphere. He liked the culture of the program. He liked what we were building. He saw the vision that Clark Lea saw, and he played it out in 2024. The vision. He saw it all unfolding and said, "Hey, if we turn this, and this around, we can be a 10-win team." And they were very close to that a year ago, last season. And so he saw the vision. Eli Stowers could have left for the NFL draft. He understood that he probably had a few more things to develop personally, but a lot of it was, I think he wants to help Vanderbilt win. He sees the vision as well, right? He sees the need for him to come back and mentor these younger guys, mentor this team, and he sees that Vanderbilt is very close to being a really good program. You retain him. He could have gone early in the draft, right? And here's what Clark Lea had to say about retention, actually, as I'm talking about it. But he said this: "Being around my team every day brings me energy, gives me hope, so I'm grateful. And it's easy to be excited about the team that returns as much production as we do, especially considering the retention of our coaching staff," right? And going on that number, not only do you retain a lot of your key players who could, like Miles Capers could have gone to the portal. Dante Carter could have gone to the portal. Martell Height lived through the freaking dark ages, so he could have gone to the portal at that. And so it's a lot of these guys could have jumped ship, and they didn't. Like Drew Dickey's going to come back and compete for the backup quarterback job. He could have gone somewhere and been a starter, but he's going to get his degree. He's going to come back and fight for that job because he knows that he's going to be able to grow potentially here at Vanderbilt. Now, once he gets his degree, he may grad transfer out. That's fine. But I think sticking through and getting that degree and sticking through and doing everything you possibly can to be the quarterback of the future shows you where this program's at. Because he probably could have jumped in the portal and been picked up somewhere and been a starter and had a really nice career. He's a really talented quarterback. He could have done that. But I think the culture here, he's comfortable. He feels good within this program. He feels like he's at home. So this is something that I think you have to look at when you evaluate where Vanderbilt is at. And when you try to project where they're going to be, I think you're starting to see that. It's starting to go into recruiting. Like Evan Hampton early on probably didn't see the vision when he committed to Louisville. He wanted to be in state. He wanted to play for Louisville. He wanted to do all of those things. But I think he saw the comments that Clark Lea made. He's seen a lot of the moves that Vanderbilt has made. I think Diego Pavia has been working on him. I think they've been selling the culture to him. And he decided, I think he was on the fence then, and that's what caused him to flip. He decided, hey, that was the last straw. SEC Media Days was the last straw for him to realize this is where I'm at. So retention, the coaching staff, they could have gone places. Nobody got fired, obviously, but they could have gone places. Like Tim Beck probably could have sought the head coaching job, but he didn't want to. Coach Langford, who pulled in two really good running back commits in Isaiah Lee and Evan Hampton, could have probably gone somewhere. Any of these guys probably could have gone somewhere along the line, and they still may after this year, but it won't be a lateral move. It will be an upgrade. It will be an upgrade in position. Like some of these guys might get coordinator opportunities, or these coordinators might get head coaching opportunities. Like those things are things you leave for, which is fine. That's what you want. But leaving laterally, being able to retain these guys, being able to retain the continuity, the staff continuity, the roster continuity, the strength staff, the support staff, the recruiting, scouting staff, like everything's still intact. And that's a huge thing moving forward because you can say, hey, you come here, we're going to have continuity. You're not going to play for 4 different coordinators in 4 years, right? We're not going to be mowing through coaches like they're pairs of socks. Like we're not going to be doing all those things. So that's a positive that you can look at just based on the statement and based on the all-in approach that Vanderbilt has. They can actually build around that. And they can actually build a roster and build a sustainable roster and not just having to replace, not just having to rebuild over half your roster every single year. That's a very comforting thing. And guys can have confidence in that. Confidence is dangerous, right? So what do they have to do now? What's the outlook? What's going to take to get to being a sustainable winning program? We're going to talk about that. Don't go away. All right, quickly wrapping up the show, quickly getting you to the weekend here, Locked On Vandy. We're talking culture. We're talking all in on NIL. We're talking everything about Vandy becoming a sustainable winning program, right? People said it was impossible. People may still see this and go, what are you talking about, right? And I know the UT fans are going to come out of the woodworks. You went to, even Charleston Southern I saw on X was chirping. They were 2-10 last year. They were terrible. Or actually, they may have only won one game. I don't know. They were awful last year. I think they were 1-11 actually. They were awful, and they're chirping, right? Nobody really believes Vanderbilt. So this is a chance for Vanderbilt to really put themselves on the map this year. And I think they have a tough schedule. I think they can do it though, right? So here's the schedule. Okay. Vanderbilt has a chance to do something special this year, right? If they want to keep this culture, if they want to improve this culture, if they want to get bigger fish in the transfer portal, bigger fish in recruiting, here's their schedule. Here's what they have to navigate. I think you're going to need some big wins here. And I think they have the roster to do it. Now they just got to go out there and execute it, right? Charleston Southern, obviously, go hang a 70 burger on them, right? Just do what you're supposed to do there. Just hang a freaking 70 piece on them, get guys in, evaluate your backup quarterbacks, and move on, right? You have 2 really important road games after that, at Virginia Tech, at South Carolina. You want to make a statement, go into Blacksburg and beat Virginia Tech. And I know Virginia Tech is not as good as they were last year, and they're not as strong of a program as they once were under Frank Beamer. But my God, that's a statement because you get Inner Sandman. That's going to be a night game. You get Inner Sandman. You get, Lane Stadium. It doesn't matter. Their crowd is going to be behind them. They're going to be rowdy. They're going to be loud. It's going to be a tough environment. It's going to get you ready for South Carolina. You really want to make a statement, go out there and beat Lenore Sellers. I think you can, right? I think that you can. I think that Diego Pavia is talented enough, and I think this roster is talented enough to out-duel South Carolina, right? It's going to be a higher scoring game because Lenore Sellers is extremely talented, right? And I think you have a chance to make a statement there. You go into South Carolina, you win, you snap the streak, you can point to it going, hey, we had a better roster. Why? Because we invested in NIL. Why? Because we brought in better talent. We rebuilt the offensive line. We've got bona fide NFL guys all over the field, right? They're going to have 4 or 5 guys drafted. It is a stepping stone. Sark, in his SEC Media Day appearance, he said that there was a progression when he took over at Texas. And you know what Texas is. Texas is probably one of the biggest programs in the country. Resources, everything. They're a storied, historically great elite program. They're a blue blood with a lot of resources. Sark came in, they were 7-5. Right, 8. They were bad their first year, and then it just took that approach. He just gradually increased. They gradually increased their roster retention. They developed guys. They brought in guys from the portal. They got a little bit better. They had a little more guys drafted, and they got really good. Had a lot of guys drafted, and they just kept that cycle. And now they've been to back-to-back college football playoffs. They've been to and then they've been involved, and they're a program that's still, oddly enough, on the rise, right? Vanderbilt can get to that point at somewhere down the road if they can sustain this level of improvement each and every year. Are they going to win 12 games this year? No, they're not. Are they going to win 10? They have a chance to, but likely not, right? I think same or better is the mark. I think the same record will show improvement. right? I think going 7-6 again would show that and oddly enough, you're probably thinking no, because it's not in favor of winning losses, but I think the way they're going to get there, the way they're going to have to get to 7-6 this year is going to show that they've improved, because they're going to have to win a tough road game to get there. They're going to have to, there's going to be some moment that they've never done to be able to get there, right? I think the floor is six regular season wins with a bowl win. I think the ceiling is about 9 wins. I think that's their ceiling. I think they're going to hit somewhere in between there. I think 7 is probably the most realistic shot, but I think they have a legitimate shot at 8, right? You can make a statement. Here's the schedule again. You can make a statement with South Carolina on the road. You just absolutely announce to the world, hey, we're here. And then you got Georgia State, Utah State to get right, and then you got a huge road game against Alabama. That'll be a huge one. Alabama will be up for that. So that'll be your, South Carolina, you may be able to catch them because of this losing streak. There may be a little bit of overlooking there. But Alabama, for sure, not. They're going to be right there. They're going to be laser focused because they ain't losing to Vanderbilt twice in a row. You want to make a statement? You go beat Alabama at Alabama. South Carolina did it last year, almost. They had them on the ropes. I think they lost focus and ended up losing that game for other reasons, but they had Alabama on the ropes at Alabama. It's possible. South Carolina wasn't South Carolina that we argued should be in the playoff at that point. That was the first inkling of, okay, this South Carolina team might be for real. They made a few mistakes down the stretch of the game. They ended up losing that game. But it showed the world that, hey, this team is for real. And Vanderbilt can show that throughout the course of the season. So there's various opportunities for them to show that regardless of a win or a loss. They showed it a little bit last year. I think they have a similar chance to show it this year. But I think they've got 7, maybe 8 wins in them. I think that's going to be early on. That's going to be the outlook. We're going to see kind of how they progress through the first 3 games, and you'll get a really good idea on what they're able to do. But as we inch closer, there's a lot of storylines as we inch closer to training camp, and of course the training camp battles and things like that we'll talk about. And then of course the season will be on us before we know it, and we'll be right in the thick of it. So make sure you like, subscribe, make sure you get on board now. Tell your friends, get on board now. And they don't want to miss out on all the fun during football season. You don't want to discover this show that you like this show in week 10, right? Discover it now. That way you have me for the rest of the season. But I appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Anchor down. Peace.